everybody. Welcome to Meddkit's Provider Spotlight, where every week we are interviewing all different types of private practices from all over the United States. And every week is completely different. New specialty, new person, new perspective. And so today I have a really awesome special guest for you. Her name is Kimberly Cossin, and she is the owner of Out of the Woods Counseling in Wyoming. Kimberly, so awesome to have you.
Awesome to be here.
Super excited to kind of dive in and learn a little bit more about you and your practice. But kind of the way I love to start out every time is, you know, learning about what got you here. Like, what is your origin story? What had inspired you to open up this great practice that you have?
So, I actually was never slated in my mind to be a mental health counselor.
Hmm.
I originally was a musician and I wanted to do music education. And after a while, I recognized that as much as I love music and I love playing in orchestras and things of that nature, it just wasn't a career for me. I wanted to keep it for me. That was my hobby. I still love it to this day. But I felt a little lost. And a friend of mine that I was doing tutoring for childhood development class was like, come with me, we're getting you signed up. And from there, I just kept going. I had a wonderful mentor when I worked in group homes, and he helped me apply for my master's program and move out to Wyoming ultimately. And from there, I had worked in multiple capacities in community mental health. I love what community mental health stands for as a whole, being able to get out there. I truly appreciate the fact that they gave me so many experiences with all sorts of people, all sorts of struggles and diagnoses themselves. Um, but I ultimately found myself not liking the structure of it all. As much as community mental health is such an amazing asset to those who are under provided for, I did think that it left out other areas, people that are working or have odd hours of the day. Um, Being in Wyoming, much of our culture is around the energy field and
Mhm.
driving many, many miles from town to town to deliver or over the road trucking and things of that nature. And it doesn't ultimately lead you to be in an office.
Yeah.
The other part is with Wyoming, we do actually have where the roads shut down. So there are times where you are stuck in your little town with feet of snow. So ultimately, I wanted to appeal to those people, the people that could use the help but wouldn't have access.
Yeah.
So it led me to create Out of the Woods Counseling and being purely telehealth.
I love that. And I think it's so nice, and just the way you described it too. The structure and, we interview people with all different backgrounds and doing different things from being in person and telemed, but it's so cool to hear that in the ways that you're serving your community, that's unique to you.
Hmm.
And, it's really nice to always hear that because I think everyone has a different story, everyone has a different why. And circumstances are certainly different. So it's so cool to
100%.
hear, how you're servicing people and why it makes total sense that, you're offering a lot of telemed services and doing telemed because of your geographic area. So that's so great to know that you're such a great resource out there for
Mhm.
people that, need services and kind of on the lines of that. What would you say are kind of the most common areas that you find that people are struggling with today that you are helping with?
So, Wyoming, unfortunately, has been in the running for the top three of mental health and suicide for the past 5+ years. There are times we've been number one in the nation as a state and even number one in the nation as a county itself. Um, we have a strong stereotype of cowboy up. And really, what that means is pull up your bootstraps and just keep walking on, shake it off, keep going. And also, with the communities being so small, everyone knows everybody. They know what you drive, they know where you're going. You're at the grocery store, they knew that 10 days ago. And finding a way to balance that has been so difficult for many of these communities that do not trust their neighbor to not want to know what's in their business.
Mm,
And with suicides being so high, we're finding a lot of struggles with anxiety, unrealistic expectations of family, of religion, of the political climate.
mhm.
We are a boomer bust society based on the energy needs. So we also see a lot of people that struggle with who they are when their job is taken away, not because of anything they've done.
Yeah.
Um, I also am working with a lot of trauma clients. Many of the people that I serve are transplants as well. So I serve people from all over different backgrounds that struggled with traumatic events,
Yeah.
many of which were physical and sexual abuse in childhood.
Mm,
So most of the work that I do, and I recently hired on a clinician and a case manager to help with this because we were offered a grant by the Wyoming Department of Ed. Have been seeing depression and trauma in our youth at significant rates.
yeah.
Within the past 5 weeks, we're in double digits for suicides in the state already. Mind
Wow.
you, our state only has about 500,000 people.
That's a lot.
hmm
That's crazy.
So, through the Department of Ed, Wyoming State is trying to do something about it. We have a Project Aware grant. So, we have myself and my teletherapist, Irene. We are telemedicine in the school district themselves. They
Mm,
have a room where our case manager brings kids out of class so that they're not driving 45 minutes to an hour and losing that class time
mm,
in lieu of mental health.
yeah, for sure.
Um, we also have a lot of poverty-stricken individuals. So grants such as these are really good because they allow services for little to no cost out of pocket, no matter what insurance looks like. So students that wouldn't normally get services get as much or as little as they may want.
That's
So,
terrific. That's awesome that you've been able to create that and get some of these grants that come in and something, that you talked about, a little bit is, and kind of what I'm looking to dive in a little bit more about is, your approach. You've
Mhm.
talked about a little bit about, who you're serving and but what makes some of your approach unique and helpful to the folks that are in your community?
so the first one is definitely just the telemedicine platform.
Mhm.
I'm a high advocate in any government capacity, any therapy capacity, because we're so sporadically laid out. For those who haven't been to Wyoming, there is literally space in between towns. It's not like here's one town and then you just walk across the street to the next one.
Mhm.
So, with how spaced that is, the telemedicine platform has been huge to
Sure.
offering those services. Um, but with that, I am also a confrontational therapist in nature.
Hmm.
Um, Everyone's allowed to have their feelings. Feelings are natural. They are who we are. We're human. But we also have to recognize that our behavior, our responses are not always the best. So I start off with every single one of my clients saying, I won't beat around the bush. We'll validate your feelings, but I want to get in and make you feel better as soon as we can.
Yeah.
And if that's me being able to say, hey, did you notice that your feeling and this didn't match up? Then I'm going to do that for you, with you.
Hmm. No, that makes a lot of sense. And, that's an, interesting approach to have. And, you seem very focused on, making sure people get what they need because the need,
Mhm.
just from what you described, just seems so dire, in your
Yeah.
area. And what way can we help these people improve as quickly as possible so that when they're thrown back into maybe a similar environment, they can now thrive and they've seen this before, but now they know what to do with it.
Yep.
Um, which is
And I
really,
try to make sure that they all know that no matter what, we're all people. And if we don't connect in that clinical setting, I will always help them find where they need to be.
yeah.
And if it's not me, it's okay.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And something that I love talking about on the podcast is, misconceptions, which there are a ton, I think in every field, healthcare is
Yep.
extremely and wildly confusing. But I'm sure you hear a lot of things and different, maybe from different phone calls you've had trickle in, and you're like, where did you get that idea that this was like this, or
Mhm.
where did you read that? So I would love if you have any misconceptions about what you do. If you can debunk some of those today, I would love to hear kind of what you're hearing on your end and what you're having to tell people.
So I have two that typically come up pretty often where I am.
Okay.
The first one is therapy isn't for me. Like therapy is about people who really have problems. And what I often tell everyone is something a professor told me when I was being trained is that every good person needs a coach of some form. And sometimes a therapist can be that to make sure that you're emotionally in a good place,
Yeah.
emotional coaching in a way.
Hmm.
And it's not about you having a problem, but it's you preventing problems from getting worse and ultimately wasting your time in it.
Yeah.
So the quicker you feel better, the quicker things are taken care of. It's like trying to use a flathead screwdriver for something you need a wrench for.
Yeah.
You're going to pound away at it and it's not going to make a difference other than waste your time.
I really
And
like.
then the other one we hear quite a bit with many of our communities being more conservative, potentially more spiritual and religious, is that counselors tend to put ideas in their clients' heads or that they change the way they think about what goes on in the session or what goes on in families, that we're out to get them almost. I actually, I've talked to many families about specifically what my training has looked like, what cultural competence looks like, and ultimately the unbiased judgment. But on the other side, I also am doing work with several ladies throughout the states to create a training program for clinicians so that they can answer this question and that there is a very itinerary type of dynamic of training. So I don't know. I'm a fixer. So at the end of the day, I hear these and it's like, okay, let's go, let's do this. So
Yeah.
when a couple of ladies got together and were like, oh, we want to find a product and create trainings, and I was like, oh, that'll help with this stereotype that we are trained to offer ideas and advice when we are not. We're here to guide people to their own concerns and things of that nature.
Yeah, for sure. I always think I love hearing about what people get asked all the time because it's always different. Um,
Hmm.
but but also it's just so interesting where the confusion lies or where that misconception, where that began. Because everyone that I interview is so wonderful and awesome and that's why we do this to get really good information out and wanting to showcase that like okay, maybe your worst fear is not coming true because this really doesn't
Hmm.
exist in this space.
Yep.
So I loved everything that you had to debunk. I thought those were awesome. Something that I always like to ask, and something that I think is kind of fun, because I love when people can come out of watching something and they can take something with them. They can do something new today. They can try something. And so in the spirit of that, what are some things that you might, tell a new client or even someone that you've been working with for a long time? And what is just a positive way that they can, move their mental health forward in a good direction? So that would be like my first question is, pro tip on, some advice on moving mental health in a better direction, something that someone can take action on today. But on the other side of it, I'd love to hear your thoughts just because you have such an interesting background, really diverse background. The other people that are listening, are not just, normal, regular people, but are also other private practices and maybe other clinicians that are looking to learn from you, looking to absorb really good information. What are maybe some pro tips that you have for them in regards to their business? And what is something that maybe that you hold true today that is really important to you that you've carried out without your practice, throughout your practice, and has just been whether it's something client focused or something that you do every day in your business? What is maybe a pro tip for a client and maybe a pro tip for someone that's watching that could be another clinician?
So for clients, one homework that I give pretty often actually is what I call energy planning. Uh, Most of us clinicians are evidence-based. There's a very big structure. And what I've come to realize is many of the concerns people come with or what they're diagnosed with tends to have an energy level to it.
Mm,
Yes, we want to motivate someone who's sad, down in the dumps, may potentially have a diagnosis of depression. But if you're going from having no energy in that depression and being told, okay, get to the gym and work out for an hour, that's like climbing a mountain.
right.
So the homework that I typically give is match the energy of the day and
Mm,
ask that question of, do I have energy for this? If not for this, what can I replace it with?
sure.
So in session, we may go through like an energy planning. What gives you energy? Does peopling give you energy? Does meetings take that energy away? And do you think they should have been an email kind of thing? And really going through that, even with the people in your life. Does
Mm,
talking on the phone with a parental figure give you energy while talking to a sibling drains you like nobody's business?
yep.
So, more times than not, match how you're feeling because that'll give you still productivity without having to compromise other areas.
I love that. I think a lot of times, we often go and do things without thinking about how we really feel about it. Like, oh, I'm just going to
Hmm.
get through this. Like, whether it's, I have a whole meeting day and it's just, 10 to 5, just sitting in meetings. Or it's like, oh, I have to call this person, but like, I don't really feel like it. And
Yep,
so I think, but like sometimes we live in a life of like shoulds. Oh, should
yep.
do that, should do this. So I think that's really clever to think about, matching your energy, but also thinking about what you maybe like and dislike and how that affects
Mhm.
you. So
It's
really,
all about finding balance.
yeah, I love that. Cool. Really
And then
awesome.
for us as clinicians, it really is finding that balance.
Mhm.
So, working in community health, due to the lack of flexibility, taking trainings, engaging in self-care, they were a bit more difficult. Um, Not because of the community health itself, but just the intensity of the clients we serve.
Yep.
Um, in going into private practice and then in working with the ladies on our secondary company, Destination CEU, my focus really is the fact that if you can't take care of yourself, what are you doing for your client? We, as clinicians, we are so empathic and we want to help the world, but our energy dwindles too. So
Hmm.
if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're not engaging in taking days off or being able to say, you know what, I'm not feeling the greatest today, let
Yep.
me see who I can maybe potentially move around, then we're doing a disservice to ourselves and the people we serve.
Yep.
So with my clinician Irene, with my case manager Seiko, and even the ladies that I work and network with, the question we always end with is, what are you doing for you?
Mm,
And have you found a fun training lately? Like we've talked about retreat type trainings, ones where part of it is the CEUs we need to continue licensure, but the other part is really focusing on us and rejuvenating ourselves. I do think as a culture within the provider community, we need to start really looking at how we do that for ourselves and then
Mm,
promoting that because we are mentors. We
yep.
do need to promote that for the people we serve too.
I love it. This has been, Kimberly, this has been awesome. The advice and hearing all about your background and your practice has been amazing. One thing before we leave off today is I'd love to ask you where people can reach out, where people can find you, chat with you, whether they're on one side of the coin or the other, looking to get help, looking to network. What is the best way to get in touch with you guys?
So I do have two websites. My main private practice is outofthewoodscounselinggroup.com. And then our retreat side is Destination CEU. Anybody can visit and ask questions. Both websites are up and live. Destination CEU is more for our providers that are out in the community. And then my private practice, Out of the Woods Counseling. If you have any questions, my email's on there, my contact is on there. And I do have a Facebook group for both. So come and
Cool.
find me. I'm very much a provider's provider, so I'll answer anything that I can anytime.
That's awesome. Well, Kimberly, thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to have you on again soon.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I hope you have a
Anytime.
lovely day.
You too.